Hello, my name is Elle Sanger, and for my Religion 354 project, I'm exploring how Buddhists account for demons, drawing primarily from Gail Hinchet Sutherland's Demons and Demonic in Buddhism. What we assume. When we hear the words demon, most of us think in extremes. We think of Satan, we think of pure evil, we think of cosmic opposition to God. But Buddhism doesn't even have a creator God. So there's no divine rival, no fallen angel narrative, no ultimate embodiment of evil standing against ultimate good. And that completely shifts the conversation. In her work, Sutherland explains that demonic figures in Buddhism are not metaphysical enemies of God, but beings embedded with the samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth that humans occupy. They're a part of conditioned experience, existence, not outside of it. And that distinction really stayed with me because it means that demons aren't ultimate villains, they're just trapped. To understand that, we have to step back for a second. In Buddhism, suffering isn't explained through divine will, it isn't punishment, it isn't divine absence. It arises from ignorance, avidya, and attachment. Karma sustains samsara. Beings act out of misperception, and those actions have consequences. So Buddhism doesn't have to defend God in the face of evil. There's no, why would a good God allow this question in the same way we see in Augustine or in the Book of Job? Instead, the question becomes, what conditions give rise to this suffering? And demons are a part of that system. Sutherland notes that demonic beings function within Buddhist cosmology as more morally ambiguous figures, sometimes dangerous, sometimes protective, sometimes convertible. They aren't fixed embodiments of evil. Their identity is fluid, and that fluidity feels important. Take Mara. Mara appears right before the Buddha reaches enlightenment. He tempts him, distracts him, threatens him, sends desire, sends fear. But Mara isn't just an external monster. As Sutherland explains, Mara represents forces like ego, craving, attachment, and the fear of death, which means the demon is psychological. And this is where things really started to blur for me and got pretty interesting because ego, jealousy, craving, those aren't demonic traits. Those are human traits. Those are things exhibited that I see in everyday life between myself, my family, my friends. We all have those traits. So, what really separates the demon from the human? If the asuras are consumed by jealousy and competition, haven't we all been there? If hungry ghosts crave endlessly and are never satisfied, does that not describe the entire economic system? Sutherland talks about the hungry ghost, as seen on the picture in the left, as in these ghosts with enormous stomachs, tiny throats, as symbols of insatiable desire. But that insatiability isn't foreign to humanity. So the line between demonic and human, again, really starts to blur. But I think that's intentional. The demonic in Buddhism isn't some alien category. It's exaggerated ignorance. It's what happens when ego hardens. It's misalignment intensified. And that's more uncomfortable, in my opinion, than a horned devil. Because it means that demonic isn't safely other. It's a spectrum. Sutherland also explains that these beings exist within the samsara, which means they are not metaphysically permanent. They are conditioned. And what is conditioned can change. And that's a huge problem of evil. In many Western traditions, demons are externally damned, fixed, irredeemable. In Buddhism, even demonic beings can eventually attain enlightenment. That doesn't minimize harm, it doesn't excuse the suffering, but it does reframe evil as tragic ignorance rather than cosmic rebellion. And I find that morally compelling. In our class, we've talked about divine silence, about God's absence and suffering. We watched the video on the Holocaust by Weasel. I mean, think of Job. Buddhism doesn't have that crisis. There's no divine silence to interpret. There's no cosmic war. Instead, suffering exists because beings act from ignorance. That shifts the emotional tone of evil from betrayal to distortion. And what I learned from this project is that the problem of evil isn't universal. It depends on your metaphysical architecture. Change the architecture and the tension changes. But here's where I'll be honest, and this is more my personal opinion and my own reflection. I've always found beauty in things that are trying to become better. I respect growth more than static perfection. And the Buddhist framework, at least the way Sutherland presents it, doesn't freeze demons as eternally corrupt. It sees them as unfinished. Trapped? Yes. Dangerous? Sometimes, well, yes, but not beyond transformation. And that idea resonates with me more than the concept of a perfectly good being who's never had to struggle. Someone who's just, something is always just stagnant. It's the highs and lows that I really think can shift the morality. And growth feels honest. And if ego and jealousy are viewed upon as demonic, then aren't we all? We all carry seeds of that. The difference isn't species, it's awareness. And in Buddhism, awareness is possible for everyone, even the demons. That reframes evil not as a rival force to destroy, but as misalignment to correct. And I think that's one of the most radical responses to the problem of evil that we've studied all semester. Not because it solves suffering, but because it refuses to make anyone, even the demonic, permanently irredeemable. And that feels both unsettling, but also quietly hopeful at the same time. Thank you so much for listening to my talk on Buddhism and their views on demonology, and I hope that you were able to learn something today, and thank you again.